Hey, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. What's going on? Welcome to Fantasy Football Today or Fantasy Football Tonight if you're watching live. Night shows get kind of wacky, so get ready. Wednesday night, 9:15 p.m. And Adam, Jamie, and Heath, we are here. Heath is soldiering on. He hasn't been feeling well since Sunday or Saturday, and he's probably wishing he was asleep right now, but he's here. And I really appreciate it. You could easily have taken the night off. Thank you for being here. I'm thankful for that.
I have taken a lot of things off so far this week, so I appreciate everybody who stepped up and filled in where I wasn't there.
Okay, I hope you're not talking about your clothes.
There haven't been a lot of people that have stepped up for you. I can tell you that much.
I stepped up. I stepped right up.
Thank you, Adam.
You're very welcome. All right, we are going to preview
breaking news.
What's the news?
Breaking news.
What is it?
Antonio Brown, according to Bruce Arians, will play next week.
Next week. Oh, wow. What a tease. All right. So that's next week against Atlanta. This week against the Colts. No Antonio Brown. Games we're looking at today. Some of them are, well, let me get the schedule up. Tell you all of them. We got Miami and Carolina. We've got Jacksonville, Atlanta. We've got, does anybody care about this? Or, they just, when it's revealed, it's revealed. All right, I'm sorry. I was buying time. Miami, Carolina, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Houston and the Jets, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Tennessee, New England, Chargers, Denver.
Do you ever know the times of the game? Do you remember the times of the game?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, I think so. You can kind of figure it out based on where they're playing. Right? Okay. Anyway, let's get to the surprising stat of the day. Good work.
Can we curse on the show since you got a potty mouth?
Jamie is a different person at night. This is like noon to him.
Oh yeah.
9 p.m. So I
fell asleep at 8:40 for 10 minutes. It was glorious.
It's really a nice deal for me. Like you said, not quite feeling myself. I do a morning podcast with Dave, and then I get evening Jamie. I've only got to say like 15 words today.
All right. So your surprising stat of the day. Nice work by Sports Illustrated breaking down Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger leads the NFL in pass attempts on fly routes / go routes, where basically a guy just runs down the field. He's got the most of those attempts in the NFL. You would not think that from Ben Roethlisberger. He has 17 of them. And according to Sports Illustrated, they noticed Chase Claypool is not getting separation on those routes, and that is leading to a lot of contested catches and incompletions. Deontay Johnson's been better on those routes. So we don't even have to break that down necessarily. We can talk about that later when we look at Cleveland and Pittsburgh. But, oh, no, sorry. Did I get that? Who's Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh playing Cincinnati.
I got the AFC North matchups mixed up. Sorry.
What time is the game?
That's at 1. Yes, I can confirm. Your 4 o'clock games are Chargers, Broncos,
he can
Rams.
attest to this. Usually on Sundays, I have to say the times of the games like about 3 or 4 times as like lead-ins to segments, and I probably say the same thing over and over again because it's a lot of like, "Hey, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, can't wait to see Joe Mixon against Najee Harris." I say that a lot or something along those lines, but I never know the times of the games going in.
You got to know the times. It's important stuff. Green Bay, Rams, Packers, Vikings, and 49ers and Chargers, Broncos are your 4 to 4:25 p.m. games on Sunday. All right, let's get to the players we love after that useless Ben Roethlisberger segment. Players we love. Heath, who do you love?
Wow, we're starting with me this time. I'm going to say even with the quarterback change, Elijah Moore. I just think the leap he's made over the last month, he's not going to go back to seeing 3 or 4 targets. He's not going to go back to playing 40 to 60% of the snaps. When we have elite wide receiver talents like this that make this type of leap in season, it generally carries on. It's a fantastic matchup. Even with Zach Wilson, he'll be at least a top 20 wide receiver this week.
Okay, Jamie's on the same page with you. Dave's a little bit lower on Elijah Moore. The Texans have allowed 100 yards or a touchdown to a wide receiver in all but 2 games. It's usually
could help. Corey Davis, change in designation today, I believe suffered a groin injury, listed as limited. We'll see what that means tomorrow, or if they practice tomorrow.
Jamie, who'd you settle on as the start of the week? This was a fun conversation to have with Jamie this week.
Russell Wilson. It's tough to trust Russ right now. Obviously, he's been struggling in 2 games back from the finger injury. but he loves Monday night. He's 10-2 in his career in Monday Night Football. He's going to love playing the Washington football team.
Jamie, what time is this game? What time is this game?
8:13 p.m.
Okay, so you know.
The reason I know that is because the Omaha Productions tweeted that last week for the Manning cast.
Oh.
I didn't realize it was 8:13.
You love the Mannings. All right,
Manning cast is the best.
Russell Wilson.
You know the best thing about the Manning cast is watching Peyton Manning as they come to the line of scrimmage, and you see his eyes just going back and forth, like as he's scanning the defense, like he's still playing.
He's a genius. It's very cool.
It is fantastic.
All right, Russell Wilson.
But we agree that Eli's cooler than Peyton, right?
I don't agree.
I think he is.
I think he's funnier. I don't think he's cooler. Jamie, break the tie.
If the question is who would you rather have a beer with, I'd rather have a beer with Peyton.
Because of what he did on the field?
No, just I think he's better. I'd like to have a conversation with him.
Yeah, he's more interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Eli's funny. Eli. And I love how Eli's shtick now is catching Peyton eating.
Yeah. It's good
like
stuff.
Peyton thought he was slick and he went off in the corner and they still filmed me eating. It was fantastic.
All right. Anything else on Wilson?
Yes, Washington stinks. They allow over 27 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. He's going to break out in a big way and remind us all of how great he is. And what better to let Russ cook on Thanksgiving?
The week of Thanksgiving, yes. A lot of cook the leftovers. I wanted Jamie Heath. I wanted him to go with Miles Sanders as the start of the week.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on him this week already. I think I feel better about Russ.
I had four guys I was debating. It was the two guys in that game, Saquon Barkley and Miles Sanders, and Cam Newton. Russ is the better story.
Okay, Russ it is. Let him cook. Let him eat those leftovers. All season long, we're playing the Fantasy Football Today Start Sit Challenge. You can go to cbssports.com/start-sit to play. Each week, answer 10 start-sit questions to win a customized Trophy Smack Championship belt with your name engraved. Because I keep saying start-sit, and I'm reminding myself that I cursed on the earlier show.
What was the word you said?
It sounds like sit. And the overall winner for the season wins $1,000 and a guest appearance on the podcast. One question this week, guys. Half PPR, Nick Chubb, James Robinson, Saquon Barkley. Remember Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt looks like he wants to play. Looks like he probably is going to play this week. So Chubb, James Robinson, or Saquon Barkley in half PPR, who would you go with?
Chubb.
Yeah, I've got it Chubb right now, but if Hunt was back, I would probably go Robinson. They'd be very, very close. Definitely those two would be my top two choices.
You said you got it Chubb right now?
I do have Chubb right now.
It sounded a little different.
What did Dave say? He said two extremely perverted things on the show. I don't know if they were intentional. He said that I don't know. I'm not even going to repeat.
My wife was about to curse in front of the kids recently, and she was like, "Holy shit, taki mushrooms!" So now my kids are saying, "You should taki mushroom."
No way, really?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so anyway, go to cbssports.com/start-sit to play. Man,
why don't you show the little graphic like Ben does? Why can't you be creative like that?
Because I don't have those capabilities. Who are we avoiding, Jamie? Avoiding this week?
Who are we avoiding this week? I would like to avoid Cortland Sutton. I know you got to be excited that he signed the contract extension and maybe coming off the bye, some things are different. We know the Chargers secondary is a little bit banged up, but it's just not been good for him with Jerry Jeudy on the field. And this defense just does not allow a lot of passing touchdowns. So I don't want to trust Cortland Sutton until I see it and see him produce with a healthy Jerry Jeudy.
Well, what about Jerry Jeudy? Why don't we take it a step further? Are you avoiding him?
None of them are must start guys for me. Jeudy is a number 3 receiver, better in PPR than non PPR. But this is a tough secondary, and I think you see the Broncos run the ball a lot. You know, with Linval Joseph not there, we'll find out if Jerry Tillery's back. But Joseph's not going to play, so it's an easy opportunity for Denver to lean on Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, and not necessarily have to make Teddy make plays.
That's really annoying, the Linval Joseph thing. Well, first of all, he tested positive for COVID, so I didn't mean to be insensitive, but I hope he comes back. He missed, week 11 against Pittsburgh. But their run defense, I mean, how many times did I talk about getting Justin Jones back after the bye and what it would mean? They are much, much better with Jones in the lineup. They have been markedly better against the Patriots, Eagles, Vikings, and Steelers over the last 4 games with Jones back. So what looked like an amazing match, still got up touchdowns, what looked like an amazing matchup for Javonte Williams hasn't really been that way. By the way, yeah, we got to keep an eye on Asante Samuel, Jamie, because you mentioned they're a little banged up, but he's in the concussion protocol. When the Chargers' 2 top cornerbacks have been healthy, Davis and Samuel, they've been one of the toughest matchups around. But the last 3 weeks, they've been in and out of the lineup, and you've seen good production from the receivers. All right. Heath, who do you avoid this week?
I kind of want to avoid the Patriots running backs. Well, the Patriots, I guess. Just a little bit nervous. They've kind of got the same thing at almost every position now, with Stevenson and Harris splitting like they are. And I just don't know which guy it's going to be on a given week. So I do have Stevenson 1 spot ahead of Damian Harris, both of them in my top 30, but neither in my top 24. I would rather start Tony Pollard tomorrow over those guys. I would rather start both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams over those guys. I'd start Devontae Freeman.
Okay. Do you know who leads the Patriots in receiving this year?
Yards or catches?
Yards.
I'd assume Jacoby Myers.
Jamie?
Kendrick Bourne.
It is Kendrick Bourne. I think he has 40 more yards than Jacoby Myers. So, yeah, it's some weeks it's Aguilar, some weeks it's Bourne, some weeks it's Myers, and now we got the running backs. That's not going to be a good fantasy game, is it? Titans and Patriots. News and notes. Aaron Jones practiced. What do you guys think of this? You think he's got a realistic shot to play this week against the Rams?
He looked good in the video I saw. They listed him as limited. You don't know if it's just them trying to get him back up to speed and, see how things go with the fact that their bye is coming up next week. So my guess, if he's able to play, remember, initially it was a 1 to 2 week timetable. So he missed 1 week and you might be able to return. I think if you're deciding between anybody on Thursday and A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, you're going to have now a decision to make, certainly in terms of A.J. Dillon being the still must-start guy, because he's not still a must-start guy if Aaron Jones plays.
But who on Thursday would you – it's not a good day for running backs, right?
Oh, it's a great day for running backs.
Well, I mean, if you're deciding, let's say, between Mark Ingram and A.J. Dillon.
Okay, right, Ingram, right. We have to get to that. If it were Tony Jones, I think you probably would be less excited. But Ingram?
Yes.
Yeah, or Pollard.
Pollard.
If you tell me Aaron Jones is playing and I have Pollard and Dillon, I would play Pollard over Dillon.
Dillon still – don't you think Dillon will still have a role, though? Because he was, kind of like Pollard. Maybe fewer catches, though.
He's still flex worthy, but we're talking A.J. Dillon, no Aaron Jones is top 5-ish, certainly top 10-ish. A.J. Dillon with Aaron Jones there is closer to where Tony Pollard is. And if you're telling me I have Pollard in a secondary role and Dillon in a secondary role, I will take Pollard against the Raiders on a short week with Ezekiel Elliott a little bit banged up.
I get that. However, if you're deciding between Pollard and Dillon and there's still uncertainty about Aaron Jones, are they not close enough where you just go with Dillon because at least you have the chance of Jones not playing?
Yes.
Okay. Speaking of the running backs on Thursday, let's talk about Thursday in general here. Alvin Kamara out, Mark Ingram questionable. The Ryan Ramczyk, their right tackle for the Saints, he's out. Left tackle Teron Armstead, he's questionable. They both missed last week's game. Defensive end Marcus Davenport is out. But Heath, what do we think now about the running backs with Ingram making some progress, but still uncertain? And again, it's a tough matchup facing Buffalo.
I would say I'm starting Mark Ingram if he's active and playing. He's averaging 20 touches a game the past 2 weeks. He could be terribly inefficient with those 20 touches and still be a starting fantasy running back. And I think he has top 12 upside.
And what if it's Jones, Tony Jones?
I think you probably take everything I say and drop it down one level. So I like Tony Jones as a flex, and he has top 20 upside. But I don't know that he gets the exact same workload as Ingram. And Jones hasn't actually shown us that he's very good yet.
Would you start Tony Jones if he's the starter, or Myles Gaskin against Carolina? Gaskin. Okay.
Yeah, same.
All right. CeeDee Lamb making good progress. Obviously, if he plays, you start him. If he plays, would you start Dak Prescott or Jalen Hurts? I got this question earlier, struggled with it a little bit. Where would you go there? Dak with Lamb or Jalen Hurts?
I would go with Dak. They'd be very similar, but Dak with Tyron Smith and no CeeDee Lamb is close enough to Jalen Hurts for me right now that I would put him over the top with CeeDee Lamb.
I would definitely go Hurts if it was 4 points per pass touchdown. But in 6, I'd probably go Dak as well.
All right. So Dak would be, we talked about this on the Wednesday show. Dak would be something around 8th or so if Lamb plays.
6, maybe.
He'd be higher for me.
Okay. All right. Kareem Hunt expects to play. We'll talk about that game in a little bit. Elijah
I have
Mitchell.
a tough decision to make against you with Todd Rones and
I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear about it.
So we have to decide. Heath, you can be the tiebreaker. So right now we have Tony Pollard in our second RB spot because we've been without Hunt and Mike Davis has just been terrible. Najee Harris is our number 1 running back.
Start Mike Davis. Start Mike Davis.
So we're debating: do we start because our flex spot is Jalen Waddle, and we have Stephon Diggs and Cooper Kupp. So we're debating: do we wait for Hunt, and if he doesn't play, we just play Dontrell Hilliard, or do we play Pollard?
I would just play Pollard because I think I might like Pollard more than Hunt in his first game back.
Yeah, that's what I'm leaning right now, but that's what our debate is.
Okay. Well, I'm going to McCaffrey you, so hopefully it doesn't matter.
You're going to McCaffrey me.
Are you still in second place in our division, Adam?
I am 6-5.
I lost my undefeated season on the last Ryan Suckup field goal on Monday night.
Oh, wow. That yeah, what I'm happy that you and Jamie are crushing it in that league because it's the podcast league. Since nobody out there cares, I'm just gonna tell you, it is Jamie and Heath as juggernauts. Jamie, you have what, 1 loss? You and Todd?
No, we actually lost our second game because I was so torn on Marcus Johnson versus Rob Gronkowski, and we played Marcus Johnson.
Oh, okay. So 2 losses, 1 loss. Everyone else except for maybe 1 team in a 14-team league. Maybe 2 teams. I don't know. It is jam-packed right around 6-5, 5-6. The points are really, really close. So this happens a lot in the podcast league. It is super competitive. And thank you all for listening to something you didn't care about. Let's rock and roll here. Elijah Mitchell was in a no contact jersey. We will hopefully get an update. We'll keep getting. Well, of course, we'll get updates, and we'll let you know. You know what to do.
They have potentially a dream situation unfolding for their offense if Mitchell plays, with Tomlinson not there, and with what's happening with Everson Griffin too.
True. Cordero Patterson was limited there at Jacksonville. Kadri Ollison has earned more carries and for Atlanta, and a writer.
I guess let me clarify. I don't want to say dream scenario. That's insensitive. They have a good situation for their team.
Yeah. So what Jamie's referring to is Minnesota defensive end Everson Griffin. They haven't said one way or the other, but he may not be available this week.
He's not playing this week.
Yeah. He's had took a break from mental health a few years ago, had kind of an issue this week.
Yes. I didn't want to seem insensitive to the Minnesota. I was talking more of the San Francisco situation.
Right. But obviously he's a key player for them. And Dalvin Tomlinson, key defensive tackle, he's out as well. Okay. Anyway, 2 running backs that could be getting more work. Kadri Ollison for Atlanta. And Ryan Talbot of New York Upstate says, don't be surprised if Thursday becomes the Matt Breida game. Jamie, who would you pick up, Breida or Ollison? And are you actively looking to pick them up?
I would pick up Breida. I mean, Ollison is only going to earn a role in whatever capacity Cordero Patterson doesn't play, because if Patterson's there and Mike Davis is still playing and Ollison is playing, I mean, that's just messy. Whereas the Bills are searching for some sort of an answer, and Breida may be their guy, so it's non-injury related for Buffalo. It's more injury related for Atlanta.
Kadarius Toney missed practice. Aaron Rodgers, we know what the bottom of his foot looks like now. Very thankful for that. He has a fracture.
So is Rex Ryan.
What?
So is Rex Ryan.
Oh, God. Miami claimed Phillip Lindsay. Corey Davis has a groin issue. Heath mentioned that. Sorry, Pete Carroll was the next thing I was going to say. Pete Carroll says that Seattle has to keep going to Gerald Everett. Okay. And Marquise Brown practiced. That was good to see. So hopefully he's out there this week. Here's something from Greg. You guys, Jamie, Heath, Dave, and especially Adam, I did not even see that, I swear, have the best fantasy football show out there. Good job, guys. So before we get into the games, let's take some time. I want to tell y'all, I'm so thankful for our audience. Truly am. You guys mean everything to me. I mean, the reason why I have a job. So I just love interacting with the audience. I love that we're on YouTube now. The live comments are great. And I've been doing this for 12 years now. And it's just, we build these relationships with the listeners and the viewers, and it's really cool. And it's an amazing job to have. So thank you, everyone, for supporting our show. Thank you, everyone, for supporting St. Jude. Very thankful. So I appreciate it. And all right, Carolina at Miami. Here we go.
I think you made Heath cry.
Yeah. A little choked up there. Thankful for you too, Heath.
Yeah.
Carolina at Miami. Instead of stats of the game, thanks, buddy.
You right now.
Appreciate it. Let's look at trends of the game. The Panthers see the second fewest pass attempts in the NFL. They are 4th in time of possession. They're 20th in pace. Miami, though, all they do is pass. 6th most pass attempts per game and 30th in rush attempts per game. So we'll see if Miami will, throw the ball a lot, because teams don't usually do that against Carolina. Meanwhile, when Miami gets inside the 5-yard line, 3 players are tied with 4 carries inside the 5. Myles Gaskin, Malcolm Brown, and Tua Tagovailoa. And Jacoby Brissett has 3 carries. So
how many does Waddle have now?
I don't know.
Well, and just like for projections purposes, I would just count that as 7 carries for Tua.
Right. And it's interesting because I think this looks like a bad matchup on paper for Tua. They don't give up a lot of points to quarterbacks. They're 2nd in yards per attempt, the Panthers. They obviously don't see a lot of attempts either, but they're going to see a lot of attempts probably against the Dolphins, because that's just what the Dolphins do. The Panthers have faced horrible competition this year, and Tua is really involved inside the 5-yard line as well. So I don't know. He's probably not the guy we should lead with here, but give me your thoughts on Tua, and then we'll talk about the other quarterback who's more interesting.
I'm scared of him, but I'm not so sure if I streamed him last week, I'm going to find somebody this new for this week. I think he could be in that 20-point range again.
All right, great. Let's
just to give you an example, like I moved on from Tua in a few leagues to Tyrod Taylor. I just think there's more upside with him in his matchup than there is for Tua.
Okay. Cam, though, Jamie, you were thinking about him for start of the week, and go Cam Newton.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that concerns me a little bit is, the Dolphins and how creative they've been defensively the last couple of weeks. Obviously, you saw the game against the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, and there's some similarities clearly in how Jackson and Cam play their games. They're not the same type of players, but they're going to run. I just wonder what kind of defense they'll throw at Cam, but I think you got a glimpse of what Cam can be last week. Now, granted, it was the best matchup on the table in terms of the Washington football team, but he was under 200 yards passing, found 2 touchdowns. He was 40-plus yards rushing and got a touchdown there. I think if you just take away the one of the passing touchdowns, that's probably where Cam is going to be most weeks. 1 passing, 1 rushing, 2 total touchdowns in general. Probably about 250 total yards of offense. And if he limits the mistakes, which I think he's capable of, he's going to be, in the top 10 conversation most weeks, especially in a matchup like this. So I'm perfectly happy with Cam as a, 23 to 25 point scorer, finishing in the bottom half of the top 10.
I just want to bring this up. Last year, week 1, 25 points. Week 2, 35 points. And he was pretty much trashed the rest of the season.
Well, then that was the COVID situation after that.
Yeah, you got COVID, man.
He did, but he also was bad. I mean, it wasn't just COVID, but there were a lot of excuses. He didn't have McCaffrey, he didn't have DJ Moore. I get that, but
he also was joining a system, and it's similar, but he was joining a system that he wasn't comfortable with.
I know, but I can't use that excuse here because he joined a team mid-season here. This is even worse.
No, I mean, it's valid. Same thing.
I just think, because what Jamie said about the Dolphins defense, I hadn't really thought about that. But then I thought about what they did to Lamar Jackson in that game. And you can't do that to Cam Newton. You could have done it to him last year. But if you're going to blitz Cam Newton 17 plays in a row, then Christian McCaffrey is going to have 14 catches for 350 yards and 7 touchdowns.
Right. They have a much different counterpunch than the Ravens do. It's also they have a run game, from their backfield. That Baltimore doesn't have that, and they abandoned it. I also think that Joe Brady, no disrespect to Greg Roman, but Greg Roman didn't adjust. I think Joe Brady will adjust, and they also have a blueprint now. So if they're going to see that, I'm sure they're working on adjustments to that. But yeah, I mean, you got to be impressed with how Cam played last week. Again, it was the best matchup on the table. Washington, we know, has been just giving fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. The Dolphins were at one point, so that's a good thing in terms of what happens for Cam this week.
Do you agree with this from a listener named Cam, a reviewer? Adam looks like all the Spider-Man actors had a baby. I could see that. I could be Spider-Man.
So it's Andrew Garfinkel, Tobey Maguire,
yeah,
and Tom, what's his name?
Azer? I don't know.
This is my Azer take for the whole Marvel series. Every time Spider-Man shows up in one of the non-Spider-Man movies, he does nothing but annoy me. Detracts from the movie. And so I do kind of see what he's talking about.
All right. Which running back do you like better in this game, McCaffrey or Gaskin? Starter sit Myles Gaskin.
I would try to sit him.
I'm okay as a low-end number 2. I like him more than the other low-end number 2s is what I would say, I guess.
The two things that he has done well when he's done well this season is catch passes and find the end zone. And this team is the best at limiting pass catching running backs. They allow the fewest receptions to running backs, and they've allowed 5 rushing touchdowns on the season. So this is a recipe for disaster for Gaskin if he doesn't score.
Gaskin or Pollard?
Pollard.
I think I have Pollard higher.
That's interesting because I understand Gaskin's not appealing, but he's got 15 or more touches in 5 straight games. He had 26 touches last week, 26 touches 3 weeks ago. Those were wins.
Playing with the lead, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and they could win. I mean, all right. Who's the best wide receiver in this game? Or Waddle?
I still think Jaylen Waddle.
Ooh.
It's really close. They're both pretty much in the must-start territory for me this week. So I hadn't really thought about if I had both of them as my third wide receiver. But I think I'd probably go Waddle and PPR for sure.
Okay. Any chance we get Devontae Parker back or Will Fuller back?
Don't believe so.
Who?
Can I tell you just real quick about Devontae Parker? He has played the Patriots, the Bills twice, and the Raiders and the Colts. The Colts are a great matchup. The other 3 are terrible matchups. And he's actually had 77 or more yards in 3 of those 5 games. And he's had a ton of targets too, 7 or more targets in every game. So I'm sure he's available in most leagues. Don't completely overlook Parker in deeper leagues.
He is lacking the best ability though.
Yeah, I know. Mike Gesicki, not super high for you guys. More like 9th, 10th or so. Actually 8th for Jamie and PPR, 11th.
He'll be a little bit lower.
Lower? Okay, how come?
Well, I Pitt's too low, so Pitts will be ahead of him.
But you're saying you're not very excited about Gesicki this week?
I think he's just one of the he falls in that category of like him, don't love him, which we do on Fridays. He falls in that category of I'm not replacing him if he's on my team, but I don't have a lot of high expectations for him to have a monster game without scoring, and we know he hasn't been scoring lately.
Yeah, and I think for me with Gesicki and a lot of there are some tight ends that show up in my top 12 whenever their team has a really high implied total because they're touchdown dependent guys, and if their team's expected to score a bunch, then I like him a little bit more. Gesicki is someone that when he's playing in a game that they don't have a very high total, he's going to be in this 10 to 12 range because he does need the touchdown to be anything more than just borderline number 1, I think.
Yeah, it's 4 games in a row of 10 or fewer PPR fantasy points. He hasn't been great. He was great before that. And only 3 green zone targets this year inside the 10-yard line for Gesicki. Both Waddle and Myles Gaskin actually have more than him. Which DST do you like better?
The Panthers.
Yeah.
Who do you like better, DJ Moore or Myles Gaskin?
DJ Moore.
DJ Moore.
Okay. Let's go to Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Cincinnati won the first meeting 24-10. Stat of the game. Ben Roethlisberger. I'm going to make this a Claypool stat. Okay. Claypool has played in 3 losses. He has 11 targets per game in losses, 6 targets per game in wins. The original stat was that Ben throws a lot more when they lose compared to when they win. And Claypool really benefits from that. It doesn't change much for Deontay Johnson, as we've seen. But Claypool, if you're looking for what makes him go, it's targets and it's pass attempts from Ben Roethlisberger. It makes a lot of sense, right? But the splits are pretty jarring.
He had, 15 targets in that week 3 game? That Juju got concussed in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a season high. He's had 15, 9, and 9 in the 3 games he's played, in the 3 losses, Claypool, that he's played in.
He's going to benefit, I think, from a target perspective with Ray McLeod not there because he's on the COVID-19 list. I think he's going to benefit as well Pat Freiermuth without Eric Ebron there. So they're getting condensed targets, which is good for Deontay Johnson and good for Claypool and good for Freiermuth because you're just losing auxiliary parts at this point. I think for Claypool, he had a 2 touchdown game against Cincinnati last year. Had the big game against them in week 3. So he's trustworthy to whatever extent you feel like you can trust Chase Claypool. But I haven't said anything here about Roethlisberger since our waiver wire show, and I know I had him as the top waiver priority. If you recall me saying that, I also said I would start him over Russell Wilson at the time, but that was with the thought of no TJ Watt, no Joe Hayden. Those guys are going to play. I don't like Roethlisberger as much with those guys on the field because I think it'll be a closer game.
Right.
And the point you brought up of I don't think he's going to be 40-plus pass attempts. I think it's going to be a back-and-forth type of game. Still think the Bengals win, but I think you're going to see not as much from Roethlisberger having to throw to that same extent.
I did come out with Claypool higher this week than I have the past few weeks. I've got him 1 spot ahead of Jerry Jeudy, ahead of Mike Williams, Brandon Ayuk, Darnell Mooney.
Okay. All right. So but not ahead of DJ Moore or Waddle, I'm assuming. Just
no.
Those guys. Okay. Stat of the game number 2. Jamar Chase has 3 straight games with 32 to 49 yards. What do you make of that, Heath?
I think he threw the big punch coming out of the gate, and the NFL's throwing a counter at him, and the Bengals and Jamar Chase will have to figure that out. You look at Joe Burrow's numbers; he averaged 9.2 yards per pass attempt the first 7 games of the season. His last 3 games, he's at 6.7. So it's like there's a correlation there, and it's just that Chase hasn't got the big plays.
But you guys still have him in your top 10.
We haven't gone. We're not far enough removed from that stretch as like the best wide receiver in football that I can think about maybe possibly sitting him.
And
who's the rookie of the year right now?
Mac Jones.
So I tweeted this after the Thursday game last week, and I got a lot of Rashawn Slater, just based on how he's played.
Okay.
But the three choices I put in the poll were Mac Jones, Jamar Chase, and Najee Harris, and Chase was the runaway leader.
Yeah, that's who I would vote for.
The key distinction when you said right now, the Patriots are winning the AFC East. I think if they win that division over Buffalo, then it's Mac Jones.
I would think that's the way that most people would vote it. But if the Chargers win the AFC West, it's hard to give it to an offensive lineman because it's not typically a award lineman win. And, I think he would have to be like so overwhelmingly dominant, not just as a rookie, but just as a left tackle for him to win that award.
It's not going to happen.
Right. And so, but the Bengals, if they win the AFC North, which they could, Chase is going to be in consideration. But if the Steelers somehow win the AFC North, Najee's going to get it. It's a really good race. The defensive rookie of the year is a runaway.
Who is it?
Micah Parsons. Not close.
Oh, yeah, he's been great. The cornerbacks have been really good too, though. But yeah, Parsons been awesome. All right, so back to this game here. Roethlisberger, Jamie, you still have him 16th? Is that accurate?
He's in the teens. I put him as the bust alert and start him and sit him just because of where he was last week. But I think he can get back to where he was 2 weeks ago, around 20 fantasy points. So don't hate him, but don't love him as much as I did on Tuesday.
Start Najee, start Mixon, start Deontay Johnson, start Jamar Chase. So how about Claypool or T. Higgins?
Claypool. I think we might have a Higgins problem. I mean, he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 2. He's kind of capped out at 13 PPR points. He was at that 3 weeks in a row. They want to run the ball. very, very much. And it's great for Joe Mixon. Mike Tomlin is scared to death of Joe Mixon, apparently, based on his comments earlier this week. So maybe Higgins bounces back, but I think we have to see it at this point until you say he's a must-start receiver again.
Yeah, but Claypool is certainly not a must-start receiver. Claypool was so bad for 3 straight games before last week.
He was, but again, there's a change because, one of those games was without Roethlisberger, so factor that in, where he missed the game with COVID.
Oh, he missed that game too. Claypool missed that game.
Oh, that's true. But I think you just look at it without Ray McCloud there, with what his...
Without Ray McCloud, come on, that doesn't matter.
Well, there were targets that's another guy that's going to lose targets.
Eric Ebron too.
Ebron scored last week.
I know, but I guess somebody else, James Washington, will get the targets. I don't know. Heath, who do you have, Claypool or Higgins?
It's Claypool. Higgins is behind that whole group that I said I had Claypool ahead of. So,
okay, man, Pittsburgh's another team to kind of figure out. It's hard to know if they're good or if it's a good or bad matchup. They're 24th against wide receivers, but last week was, so injury related. They've been sometimes really good, sometimes really bad. I don't know. It's kind of like
Higgins missed the first game, and Tyler Boyd scored in that game.
Right. Okay, so what about Freiermuth?
Must start.
Yeah, I'm not quite there. I still think he's kind of like what I said about Gesicki. If he doesn't score a touchdown most weeks, he's going to be a disappointment. Those weeks when he got hot and had 3 touchdowns in 2 weeks, did he have 100 yards combined in those 2 games? So I don't think this will be a high scoring game. I think if he scores, he's probably a top 6 guy, and if not, he's probably a top 15 guy.
I think you just look at the last 3 games he's played with Roethlisberger, at least 3 targets. He has a touchdown in 2 of those 3, and so ever since we've seen Juju gone down with Roethlisberger with him, he's been productive more times than not.
He certainly likes throwing him in the end zone. All right, so did you say who you like better, Heath, Freiermuth versus Gesicki?
I have Gesicki 2 spots higher.
Jamie?
I like Freiermuth better.
Okay. Oh, we haven't talked about Joe Burrow. All right. Joe Burrow or Russell Wilson?
Russ.
The Steelers, again, I think they're solid, but they're certainly beatable. They're not, let's see. Josh Allen, bad in week 1, but Carr, 27 points, Burrow, 22 points, Rodgers, 27 points, Bridgewater, 22 points, and last week, Herbert, 40. And, the players that they've done well against, other than Allen, have been scrubs. So I don't think it's a tough matchup for Burrow.
No, I think what he got the last time, like you said, think about some of the numbers you rattled off there. Burrow, 22, Bridgewater, 22. That's a safe number for Burrow to get to. That basically is what he's been averaging all season.
Yeah, but he did that on 18 pass attempts.
Yeah, but again, I think he's going to find the end zone. It's just a matter of who's going to get the end zone for him.
Well, okay. I think that's kind of, we've talked about that before. If he had thrown more passes, his efficiency wouldn't have been as good. Because the reason that he only threw that many passes is because he threw 2 50-yard touchdown passes, and those drives were just over.
Yeah, back then they were running the ball even more. They were barely throwing. Thankfully, he's throwing more now. Okay, which DST do you prefer, Bengals or Steelers?
Steelers, if healthy.
Okay,
but they're close.
Jets are at Houston. Yeah, look, it's not a spotlight game or anything, but it's some interesting starter sit decisions. I gave you one stat of the game. Texans have allowed 100 yards or a touchdown to a wide receiver in all but 2 games. Stat of the game number 2, the Jets have allowed 20 or more fantasy points to 6 straight quarterbacks, 24 or more in 6-point to 5 of the last 6, and that includes Mac Jones and Matt Ryan. So they suck. And stat of the game number 3, this is even crazier. 15 running backs have scored double-digit non-PPR fantasy points against the Jets in 10 games, 1.5 per game. And they have given up 21 touchdowns to running backs. So, Heath, we have a lot of players that are not that appealing, but how many of them made it into your rankings as starters or close to starters or streamers, I guess I should say, in this game? Start with the Texans.
Well, I think there's really one starter on each team right now as things stand. It's the number one wide receiver for each team. You're starting Brandon Cooks. You're starting Elijah Moore. I had it ranked to where I'd start Moore and Davis, and if Davis is okay, I'll probably be there again. The running backs, I really would like it if you didn't have to. I'd feel a lot better about my team if I didn't have to start any of these guys. But David Johnson's probably my favorite in full PPR, and then Rex, and then Ty, and then Tevin, or Ty, and then Rex, and then Tevin. I mean, really, really gross stuff here.
Heath talk Ty. Okay, Jamie, you agree with that sentiment?
No, I like Ty Johnson the best. So I'll go Ty Johnson, then David Johnson, then Rex, and then Tevin. In non-PPR, I would go with Rex, then Tevin, then David Johnson, then Ty Johnson.
I don't have any idea.
Ty Johnson has 2 or fewer catches in every game that Mike White did not play a lot.
But Michael Carter played in all those games.
That's true. So, okay. So you think he's going to catch a decent amount of...
I don't think he's catching 8 passes, but I think he's going to be probably in the 3 to 5 range. I think he's also going to get probably in the 8 to 10 carry range. And against this Texans defense, none of these guys are must-start options, but I think he's the best of the bunch in PPR.
So if you look at, say, the Broncos backfield or Tony Pollard,
All better
than every running back in this game?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Deontay Foreman or a running back in this game?
I would take Foreman in non-PPR over all of them.
I'd take Foreman in PPR over all of them.
How about, do you like Hilliard better than Foreman, or is Foreman your favorite Tennessee running back?
Hilliard much better than Foreman in PPR, as long as Jeremy McNichols is out.
That's the key. Yeah, right now it is Hilliard, but I have no idea what I'm going to do if McNichols is back.
They obviously made this move for some reason to release Adrian Peterson. Now, whether it's because they like Dontrell Hilliard that much, they like Deontay Foreman that much, maybe they like Jeremy McNichols that much. But coming off the game that they just saw where they did not play well, but Hilliard showed them something in the passing game, it's hard to say.
So back to Jets-Texans. Sorry to divert from this game. Tyrod Taylor. So Tyrod Taylor or Tua Tagovailoa? Oh, Jamie, you said you pivoted to Tua.
Yep.
I just wanted everybody who has 2 T's in their name. Taylor Heineke or Tyrod Taylor?
Heineke.
Heineke. Okay, thank you, Heath. Thank you for smiling. I appreciate that. Oh, another Heath size. We don't get enough Heath size these days. Let's talk about Elijah Moore. Would you start Elijah Moore or DJ Moore?
DJ.
DJ.
Elijah Moore or Brandon Cooks in this game?
Cooks. These might all change to Elijah Moore if Corey Davis is out.
Okay, Thursday decision. Elijah Moore or Michael Gallup?
Elijah. Especially if Lamb plays.
Right. Okay, Elijah Moore. Let's do some running backs. Or Saquon Barkley.
Barkley.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders.
Elijah.
More in PPR.
Half PPR.
More.
Elijah.
Non-PPR.
Sanders.
All right, there we go. Devontae Freeman or Elijah Moore?
Same exact answer for Sanders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm satisfied. And Cooks
don't fall for Devontae Freeman's 6 catches from a week ago, please.
Or the season high in carries, probably.
Yeah, he makes me a little nervous, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else from this game? I think you guys covered it pretty well.
I mean, Jamison Crowder is interesting. It's a tough
yes.
matchup for him, but he did have a touchdown last week, but quarterback change again.
It's a tough matchup for him?
It's a little bit tougher for him than it is for the outside guys.
Okay. Houston, it's not like they're terrible against wide receivers. They're 20th. Last week, obviously, A.J. Brown led it. It's just they're not that good. They just don't see that many pass attempts. So, but this team's not like they're going to run all over them. All righty. Let's go to our next game. And some people are asking, hey, do I gamble on the Texans DST? What's your answer there?
You absolutely can. I mean, you know, so this is like the counter to the counter, where Zach Wilson was terrible to start the season. And, you know, this is where I think you and Heath's DST rankings have differed. in that, every time he was not banking on team versus Jets and he paid off was because it was when Zach Wilson was gone. But when Zach Wilson was there, it was a good matchup. So, I mean, give the Texans credit. They just intercepted Ryan Tannehill 4 times. So there's probably some momentum carrying over to it. So it's not a slam dunk. I think the thing that people are looking at is, especially if you play on our site, the projections for the Texans have them as top 5 DST.
Would you start the Texans DST against the Jets or the Rams at the Packers?
The Rams.
Rams.
Let's take a break. When we come back, Tennessee at New England. 2 first-place teams here. Tennessee at New England when we come back.
Part of that answer, though, for the Rams is because you want to have them for next week. I forget who they play, but it's an amazing matchup.
I think it's Jacksonville.
I think you're right.
All right, now we're taking a break. Tennessee at New England when we come back. This is an interesting game. You've got the Titans, who were the toast of the town before they laid an egg last week, and I think they're still number 1 in AFC, right?
Yes.
And are they underdogs in this game?
Yes.
Right. It's kind of interesting. But New England's got a ton of momentum. They're in first place. It's a little shocking. Stat of the game. The Titans allow the most fantasy points to wide receivers, but they also allow the most receiving yards to slot wide receivers. Can we start any Patriots wide receiver?
I think if you're looking at it, you're talking about deep leagues, number 3 options. And so Myers in PPR and Kendrick Bourne in non, which means Nelson Aguilar is going to score a touchdown. So the answer is probably no.
I'd be really, like, the way things stand right now, we're not projecting A.J. Brown. And with that in mind, I'd be really happy if I just didn't have any players that played in this game.
Yeah, and you already talked about how you're avoiding Stevenson and Harris. If they win, which they're favored to do, and they're doing a lot these days, that's a good thing for the running backs. They did split the carry. It's just a matter of who's going to score. They didn't score last week, but they usually score a rushing touchdown when they win. So, yeah. Okay, talk about who's in the same range. Compare Broncos backfield versus Patriots.
I think one thing to consider, sorry, not to dodge your question, but the Titans defense was not the problem last week. Their defense is still really good.
Yeah, right. I know. It's this game's and you see what I said earlier, they give up the most fantasy points to wide receivers, but if you look recently, they've really turned a corner.
100%. Their pass rush has been amazing. So
they don't have Dupree though.
Huh?
They don't have you, me, and Bud Dupree.
True, but this also isn't a dynamic passing attack. And so I think from the question, I would start the Broncos running backs over the Patriots running backs.
You, Me, and Dupree was one of the most maddening movies I've ever seen. You ever see that movie?
No.
All I remembered, I think Owen Wilson, right?
Yeah. And Matt Dillon.
Just hating it.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Oh, is that where he's like the buddy that shows up on the couch or something?
Yeah, and Kate Hudson. He basically moves in on Kate Hudson.
Yeah. I did see that.
Oh, what a not enjoyable. I have never seen it on TV, and it shouldn't be. Apparently Seth Rogen was in it. That's interesting. Okay. I'm looking at, you ever go to Tankathon? Tankathon.com gives you the current NFL draft order.
As a Giants fan, I'm surprised you're there.
Yeah. No, I was like, what do we have? We got 5th and 7th. All right. Tennessee has I think the second easiest strength of schedule thus far. I think the only team that has played a lower winning percentage is Atlanta. Tennessee's just had a very cupcake schedule. All right.
That's surprising because they play a lot of tough teams.
Well, they play, the Jaguars, the Texans. I don't know. I haven't broken down.
They played the Rams. They played the Chiefs. They played the Bills.
Chiefs don't have that good of a record. That's the funny thing. And
Yeah.
the Bills really don't either, right? Not bad, but what are they, 6-4? So, okay. They played the Jets, Seattle. Why am I talking about this? Let's move on. Let's move on. That's it. Try not to start anyone in this game. We already talked about Deontay Foreman and the pass catching back. In PPR, we'd go with the pass catching back. No, I'm just saying it's either Hilliard or McNichols.
No, I wouldn't like McNichols as much as I like Hilliard.
Okay, because
So it's not just it's Hilliard. If McNichols come back, muddies the whole thing. They're all worse.
Hunter Henry, starter sit.
Sit.
Just like I said at the intro to this game 15 minutes ago.
What, that you would sit everyone?
So I'd really like to.
Oh, we got a revenge game.
Who?
Vrabel?
John.
Okay. Vrabel. Yeah. All right. Chargers at Denver.
Revenge game.
Heath, tell me if I should read into your DST rankings.
No.
All right. Because
the answer to that question is, has, and always will be no.
Do you think this is a low scoring game? Chargers Broncos? Because I think you have currently the DST's top 7, but I know you're still working on that.
I am still working on that. I think that's an inaccurate ranking.
Okay. Then tell me how you feel about this game, Chargers and Broncos.
I mean, you're starting, I think, probably the top 3 running backs in the game, and you're starting Keenan Allen, and there's a big mess of wide receivers that ranked from like 24th to 40th. And if you don't have a better option, you start Noah Fant.
All right, we got to talk about the Broncos running backs. Just to say you start them, that's risky. Especially if they don't win. If they don't win,
I think I asked you this morning.
Yeah.
Have you looked at our running back rankings? Like, I would like you to tell me where that's risky ends when you're going forward.
I'm starting Javonte Williams in 2 leagues, so I'm starting him over Tony Pollard in 1 league. I'm having second thoughts about that though, because
I have Pollard ahead of him.
This run defense has been damn good since they got Justin Jones back, and I know Linval Joseph, is he definitely out this week? He missed last week.
I think he's unvaccinated, so I think he is.
Okay, but they still gave up 3.3 yards per carry to Najee Harris. So it's the last 4 games.
That's his season average, right?
Slower, I'm pretty sure. But it's not far off. It's probably like 3.6 for the year.
Heath, do you know that the Lions have a new kicker?
You're going to take a sick.
Now I have to go check and see if I have the Lions kicker ranked.
I just learned this today.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know what I'm saying here? Like, these are not great starting options on a weekly.
Well, I mean, Melvin Gordon, 2 of his last 3 games has been good. He's got the revenge game factor, so that could motivate him. Javonte Williams, prior to the bye week, was the game Melvin Gordon fumbled, and so does he get more of an opportunity coming off a bye like we saw last season when a lot of the rookies coming off a bye took off? So I don't know. I think you can you can sort of look at both of these guys and say, okay, if they're playing with a lead, like you said, Adam, and there's a good chance that they are. Oh,
no, I said if they're losing, because this team, the splits for the 2 running backs in wins and losses is extremely dramatic. Now, they've had a lot of blowout wins. They haven't played a lot of close games. Now, the one close game they played against Washington, close win, I think you did see a decent amount of carries for both Javonte and Melvin Gordon. So as long as they keep it close, but if they get blown out, then they're going to be.
I don't think they're getting blown out.
Me either.
But
it's a big game.
I don't think they're blowing out the Chargers. Linval Joseph is unvaccinated, according to the Associated Press story that I'm reading. And Jerry Tillery and Christian Covington are also still in the COVID-19 protocol.
Okay. So that does matter for sure. Would you start Broncos running back ahead of a Josh Jacobs running back?
I would, yes. I don't love Josh Jacobs this week.
I don't love Josh Jacobs, but I would start him over the Broncos.
Would you start Chase Claypool or Melvin Gordon?
Melvin.
Claypool and PPR.
All right, Justin Herbert's top 4. I want to ask you guys about that. Last week, he really crushed it against the Steelers.
Run, man. Let that man run.
Yeah, he's not going to rush for 90 yards, I don't think. He was really struggling, Justin Herbert, before he faced the depleted Steelers. And Denver's allowing the 4th fewest fantasy points to quarterback. So you have a lot of confidence in him as a top 5 guy?
No, that'll be a rankings adjustment for me. He'll be closer to 8.
Okay, Dak
starting him.
Dak over him?
Yes, especially if CeeDee Lamb plays.
Cam or Herbert?
I think Heath fell asleep.
I'm still here.
Heath, Cam, or Herbert?
Herbert by a pretty good margin.
It's very close for me.
Okay. Mike Williams, start or sit?
I would start him, but it's more along the lines of there's not a lot of better options.
Yeah, I think he's a boom bust number 3, and fits that role pretty well.
Yeah, I
He
like
booms and he busts. He does all the things.
Yeah, he's usually getting 5-6 targets, so it's concerning. And the Broncos have not allowed more than 66 yards to a wide receiver in any of their last 4 games. That is the Browns, Washington, Dallas, and Philadelphia.
He has a very good track record against Denver.
Does he?
Yes.
All right. And let's see, anything else in this? Oh, gosh, the Broncos wide receivers. Definitely got to talk about that. How do we feel about them? You said, Jamie, you want to avoid Cortland Sutton, and I'm sure you're avoiding Tim Patrick. But what about Jerry Jeudy? He's given us 6 catches on 8 or 9 targets in 2 straight games. That is very nice. What do you think about Jeudy?
Yeah, I mean, Jeudy in the last 2 games has 17 targets. So clearly that's where Teddy Bridgewater has been going. By comparison, in the last 3 games for Cortland Sutton, he has a combined 9 targets, and he's got 5 catches for 78 yards on those 9 targets. So Jerry Jeudy coming back has been terrible for Cortland Sutton. The injuries to the Chargers secondary could help Cortland Sutton, but you're still looking at a defense that is number 2 for the season in fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers, and they just don't give up a lot of touchdowns to the position. So if Sutton's not going to score, he's not going to make a lot of plays down the field. How confident can you be in him? And we do this segment every week for, you may see it somewhere, for CBS Local Sports. It's all the TV stations that air it on their websites. And Dave likes Cortland Sutton this week. And in Heath's response to Dave liking Cortland Sutton, when Dave said the secondary is beat up and he thinks Sutton will score, Heath, I think, said it best. A Broncos receiver could score. There's no guarantee, though, it's going to be Cortland Sutton, just because he has not been very good in this scenario with everybody healthy.
Another thing that's hurting Sutton is Teddy Bridgewater's 4 lowest air yards per pass attempt games are his last 4 games, his 4 most recent games. He's not throwing the ball downfield as much as he was. So is the Charger, what am I missing here on the Chargers secondary? Is it just Samuel with the concussion? Or am I missing something? Because Davis is back. I see. Yeah, I think it's just.
Yeah, I think it's Samuel.
Okay, so if he plays, they're not beat up at all. If he doesn't play, then it's a bit of a problem. Okay.
Yes. Mike Williams in his last 5 games against the Broncos, he's got 2 games with at least 99 yards receiving, and 3 games in his last 5 with at least 13 or more PPR points.
Oh no, where'd Heath go?
I'm sorry, 4 games in his last 5 with at least 13 or more PPR points.
All right, Heath has left the building. Hopefully he'll be
fell
back.
asleep.
I hope not. He didn't even eat turkey yet. So, Jamie, we got.
You think he's eating turkey at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night?
No, I'm saying he's not sleepy because he hasn't eaten turkey yet.
Was it the tryptophan?
Noah Fant.
Speaking of Noah Fant, I like him this week.
Yeah, we got to get to him too. Chargers suck against tight ends.
They
but
do.
Jerry Jeudy or, the Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon range.
Jeudy and PPR.
Okay. Half?
Jeudy.
All right. Noah Fant, he's 10th for you, right around there.
Noah, yes, please. The Chargers are tied with the Eagles for most touchdowns allowed to opposing tight ends with 9. And Fant, he hasn't been great, obviously, but, you just look at matchups. He's not a slam dunk. He's at the lower end of the starting group. But I do think that he has a chance here. And in the 2 games against the Chargers last year, he scored at least 11 PPR points in both of them. So I like my chances with Noah Fant this week if I still have him on my roster.
Fant or Dan Arnold?
Fant.
Fant or TJ Hawkinson?
Hawkinson.
Okay. Let's go to
PPR. I'll take Fant, non-PPR.
Okay. Let's go to our next game. It's Cleveland at Baltimore.
Actually, no, I'll take Hawkinson both.
All right. Hawkinson it is.
All right, maybe Fant.
2 games left. Cleveland at Baltimore. So no Baker Mayfield, but we're not starting Baker Mayfield. He's going to play. Let's talk about the backfield here. Chubb and Kareem Hunt. There's no way you sit Chubb. The Ravens, remember I said I was a little worried about David Montgomery last week. The Ravens, only one running back has more than, I want to say, 66 rushing yards against them, something like that, and it was Dalvin Cook. Let's see, it's 59. No running back has more than 59 rushing yards except for Dalvin Cook. So, but Chubb, you're still going to start, obviously. Are you going to consider him a top 12 running back, even in full PPR, if Kareem Hunt plays?
No, I mean, in full PPR, he's not as good. In non-PPR, he's better. So, he's closer to he'll probably be outside the top 12.
Okay. Going to be hard to get away from him, though.
You're not benching him. I mean, because, I mean, let's think about it. If Aaron Jones returns, then, the Packers running back situation can be a little bit murky just because you don't know how healthy Aaron Jones will be. So I probably would have Chubb ahead of both Packers. Right now I have Dillon ahead of Chubb in PPR. Trying to think any other situations I could change. Yeah, I mean, we're splitting.
Yeah, all right, yeah, whatever. Start him. But what about Hunt?
Hunt is in that Tony Pollard, Broncos running backs, ahead of the Patriots running backs group that we've been talking about. I would start him over Myles Gaskin, for example.
You would?
In PPR, yes. Non-PPR, probably stick with Gaskin.
Would you start him over Miles Sanders?
No, I like Sanders this week, so no.
Okay. All right. Would you start any Cleveland wide receivers?
No.
Want to hear something interesting? So I know that I talked about this last week. You probably remember, at least the gist of it. The Baltimore defense, they give up the most yards per catch to wide receivers by a full yard over the next worst team. And as well, does that really work with Cleveland? Do they go deep? They actually have the 5th most 40-plus yard pass plays in the NFL, which I found interesting.
Njoku has 1 or 2.
I have no idea. I'm sure Donovan Peoples-Jones has 1 or 2. I
think maybe Nick Chubb might have 1.
Maybe a 40-plus yard pass play could be a catch and run.
Yep.
Yeah.
Njoku definitely has 1.
I don't recall, but yeah.
Against the Chargers.
Okay. So, yeah, I don't – it's like so hard to – you're not trusting this passing game. But we'll see if they can complete something deep on Baltimore, because pretty much everyone does.
I just think you're looking at it. Jarvis Landry is gutting it out through this knee injury. You got lucky that he got the rushing touchdown last week. He hasn't scored a touchdown through the air. Donovan Peoples-Jones is banged up. You can't trust him. Baker's banged up. You can't trust him. This is, the Browns trying to run the ball and get out of Dodge with a win and see if they can get to their bye week and get healthy.
Austin Hooper's had 5 to 7 targets in his last 3 games, but he's just outside the top 15. Baltimore struggled against tight ends, but they've been better the last 2 weeks against the Dolphins and the Bears. Very good against them. So we go over to the Ravens side of the ball. Lamar Jackson's number 1 for Jamie and Heath, number 4 for Dave. Start him. Why are you nervous about Devontae Freeman coming off his best game? And he has scored 11 or more PPR points in 4 of his last 5 games. Is that great? No, but it's something. Why are you nervous about Devontae Freeman?
I just think he's going to, split touches with Latavius Murray. He's going to lose rushing production to Lamar Jackson. And this Browns run defense is not horrible. And so you're still starting Devontae Freeman, but more of a flex than a must-start guy, or closer to a flex than a must-start guy. But I'd start him over the Patriots running backs. He's in the mix with the Broncos running backs. I'd start him probably over Pollard, but he's at the back end of the RB2 group.
I do want to just disagree a little bit, because I don't know what's going on with the Browns run defense. It was great, but in their last 4 games, Javonte Williams, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon. That's their last 5 games. I'm sorry. All right, here we go. Last 4 games. Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, Ramondre Stevenson, DeAndre Swift. All of them scored 20 or more PPR fantasy points. And then if you look at, just like per carry, they're just getting gashed in their last 3 games, not by Najee, but Mixon, 13 for 64. Stevenson, 100 yards on 20 carries. Swift, 136 yards, average almost 10 yards per carry. So they're really struggling. I don't know. Devontae Freeman or Kareem Hunt?
Freeman.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Freeman's not bad. He's just not. I don't want to get caught up in people thinking that last week is who he is.
Sure. Marquise Brown and Rashad Bateman. How do you feel about them?
I mean, Marquise Brown's a must-start guy, and I think Bateman will benefit with those guys back, but he loses if Brown plays. So, low-end number 3 receiver.
If I were going to sum up the Browns' defense, by the way, because is Browns' defense good? Sometimes we thought they were. In just one sentence, good offenses do very well against the Browns, comma, but bad offenses do very poorly against the Browns. So I think you'll see a good game from the Ravens here. And Mark Andrews is a start. And the Ravens DST is top 4. Okay. Atlanta at Jacksonville. Last game for us. And then we're getting our Thanksgiving on. Matt Ryan is a sit. Who's the start in this game?
Cordero Patterson if he plays, and he practiced on a limited basis Wednesday, so it sounds like he's trending in the right direction. James Robinson, who is still dealing with the heel and knee injury, but he's expected to go. And turkey time.
Who do you like better, Patterson or Robinson?
Kyle Pitts. I'm sorry. He's a must-start guy.
Okay, yeah, we got it then. Who do you like better, Robinson or Patterson?
Patterson.
You going to rank Patterson like you normally would, top 12?
Yes.
Okay. Robinson makes me a little nervous. He's got 12 carries in each of his last 2 games. He's clearly dinged up. Are you nervous about him at all?
I'm not. I think this is a game they can win. So keep that in mind if they're playing with a lead. As long as he's out there, I'm starting him. So he's not. This is a guy that, when healthy in a matchup like this, would be a top 5 candidate.
Sure.
Now he's closer in that 12 to 15 range, so more of a number 2 running back. But I'm not getting away from James Robinson. As long as he's healthy. And I do think there are some sleeper options at wide receiver too. Russell Gage, he's going to have, assuming Calvin Ridley doesn't surprise us and play, which at this point doesn't expect to be the case. I think he'll have 7-8 targets, and I think he can get you 5 for 60, 5 for 70 in that range. So sneaky number 3 receiver in PPR. And then either Marvin Jones or Laviska Shenault, probably want to lean toward Marvin Jones because no Jamal Agnew. There's going to be targets available and opportunities available for those guys. And so, we've seen this Falcon secondary at times. They're tied for 3rd in most touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. A large group of teams. I think it's like 5 teams that have allowed 14 touchdowns to the position, but they're one of them. And so, there's touchdown opportunity here for one of those guys. Now, they haven't scored very often. Shenault has yet to catch a touchdown this season. And I think Jones has 1 touchdown since week 2 or week 3. But, maybe Trevor Lawrence gets them into the end zone.
Yeah, it's interesting. Same thing with running backs and wide receivers for the Falcons. They don't really give up a ton of yards to any particular guys. There've only been 3 wide receivers who've had more than 75 yards. 75 is good, but you'd think more than 3 would have gotten there, exceeded that anyway. But they just give up touchdowns. They're pretty good against the run, but they give up a lot of touchdowns. So hopefully the Jaguars can do that. That's not really their thing, but it is James Robinson's thing. Would you start a DST in this game?
Not really. It's like when you talk about the Texans and the Jets versus the Jaguars and the Falcons, I feel more comfortable with the Texans defense than I do about either of these two.
And let's get into Kyle Pitts. A lot of people are going to have questions about him coming off that really bad game against New England. Where are you going to have him ranked?
Top 5. Right now he's out. He's in my top 10, but need to move him up a few spots. Maybe 6 or 7. I don't know. He'll be in that group. You're starting him.
I think this team is terrible against tight ends. It doesn't necessarily jump off the page at you. I think they're 21st against tight ends or something like that. But I mean, Farrell, Brown, Uzama, Smythe, Doyle, they've had solid games. And then Kittle had 4 targets. He caught all of them, caught a touchdown. Gesicki had 115 yards. Uzama 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. So this team, I think, is just awful against tight ends, even though they're not among the worst in points allowed. Got a question here in the chat: Pitts or Schultz?
Probably Pitts.
All right, I'm going to give everybody in the chat 2 minutes to ask your questions. 2 minutes to ask your starter sit questions here. How about Waddle, Henderson, or Gibson in the flex?
Henderson.
All right, waiting for some more to come in here. Because we're so thankful to have you. Send in your questions right now. You got about a minute and a half left. Prescott or Garoppolo or Heineke?
Dak.
Where's this? Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers or Garoppolo?
Rodgers.
Javonte Williams, Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore, Jeff Wilson, or Pat Freiermuth?
Oh, boy. Non-PPR, if Elijah Mitchell is out, it would be Jeff Wilson. PPR, it would be Elijah Moore.
And should I pick up Chase Claypool? And if so, who should I drop? Yes, you should pick up Claypool. Who should you drop?
You should drop Wilson if Mitchell is healthy. If not, you should drop Bateman.
I would drop, if you have another tight end, I would drop one of them, Freiermuth or your other tight end. Unless you're
You could also drop Garoppolo this week, but you're going to need a quarterback next week with Rodgers off.
Yeah, just drop,
We need a quarterback next week, though.
Michael Gallup or T. Higgins?
Michael Gallup.
Jacoby Myers or Kadarius Toney?
Toney, if he plays.
Knox or Evan Ingram?
Knox.
Matchup. Is Thanksgiving better than July 4th?
Ooh.
I say no. I like July 4th. I think it's my favorite holiday.
July 4th is your favorite holiday?
Yeah.
July 4th is one of the few that we actually get to take part in.
Yeah, exactly.
Without having to work.
Right.
So, yeah, maybe July 4th.
July 4th for everyone. All right, thanks. USA. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow, Friday morning, bright and early, with starter sit for the NFC home games. And if you're on YouTube right now, hop on over to our FFT and 5 stream. Jamie and I got 5 minutes of fantasy content for you. We'll see you soon. Later.